My name is Viktoriya Stinson, and I am the executive director at Victory Starts Now.
What inspired you to create Victory Starts Now?
I went to law school, and the first week of law school, I knew I didn't want to be an attorney. But since I already went through the process, I said, let me go ahead and finish what I started. And what was so cool is my second year of law school, there was a lady named Nancy Clark, and this was during the time of Prop 36, where the three strikers were being resentenced and released back into the community. She came to one of my criminal externship classes with a group of guys that she helped get out of jail. And that was my first time seeing or asking myself the questions like, what happens to people after incarceration? And then I myself got an opportunity to work with the Los Angeles Public Defender's Office as a law clerk, and I got to work on Prop 36 resentencing petitions. And what I saw was these individuals who had spent, 20, 30 years in prison get out of prison. They've lost all connections to the community, and the public defender's job was done once they were released. And so I felt like there wasn't enough of resources, there wasn't enough attention, there wasn't enough people asking the question, what happens to people after incarceration? And so we started our very first facility in 2015, actually 10 years ago. And we said, not only do we want to ask the question, what happens to people after incarceration, but we want to give them a space to flourish, to come into their purpose, to help them reintegrate back into society. And that's how Victory Starts Now was born. May 1st, we're actually opening up our 22nd facility. And we have seen that asking that question constantly and consistently has allowed us to create a humanistic approach to allowing people to reintegrate back into society after incarceration.
So, can you tell me about the facilities?
Yeah, absolutely. So once somebody comes to our facilities, a lot of times, um, I don't have anyone that's coming to from prison. Most of these people are coming from county jail. They usually are coming from homelessness. They usually have severe mental illnesses. They usually have substance use issues as well. So the trifecta of basically the individuals that society doesn't know what to do with. And so they come to our homes, and our very first job is to stabilize them. And that looks like stabilizing their mental health, stabilizing their physical health, because again, if they're coming from the streets, they went from the streets to jail to us, they often have physical health needs that need to be addressed, dental needs, things like that. So we help with all of those things. And then the second part of our job, which is really, really important, is getting them to trust us, that we're really here to help them. A lot of these folks, and I only deal with adults right now, a lot of these folks, by the time that they get to us, they've heard the word help all throughout their lives, from the social worker that probably took them away from their parents when they were little kids to like whoever else, right? They've heard that someone is going to help them all of their lives. So this is actually the challenge of our work, is getting them to trust us. Because once they can trust us, then we can ask to trust them and say, like, because that's, they're buying into the program, right? It's trust us, follow what we're telling you to do, and the results will be a productive member of society again. And so, um, there's a psychiatrist in house that they get to see, a therapist in house they get to see, case management. That's what's really success makes this model so successful, is everything is in house. They're not going into the community. It's not all these different agencies that don't talk to each other. Everything is in house, and we all talk to each other, which is why this program works. And then what's really great is all of my contracts are through the Office of Diversion and Reentry, which is a Department of Health Services agency. They care about what happens after they leave us too, because we stabilize them, we work on different things with them, different life skills, and then the ODR works on linking them to permanent housing after they leave us. LA County operates with the housing first model. They believe that, once you can get everybody safely into housing, you can work on everything else. So they really stand by that and work really hard on getting people permanent housing and offering them support for life, which is what people need after some really, really hard lives and experiences.
I like what you said about getting the housing because you're still going to need treatment and help afterwards. So, how important is it to get people to understand that this is like a marathon, not a sprint?
Right. And that's what I love about working with ODR is that with every other work that I've ever done, there's always been this expiration date. There's always this like idea that at some point this person we're helping no longer needs help, which is preposterous. Like
Right.
you don't get somebody that's coming out of jail from, with homeless, abuse issues, mental health needs, and then in 2 years what they're fixed and they no longer need support. No, this is a life, like you said, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And ODR and LA County seem to really get that in the support services that they line up for people to get support for the rest of their life if they need it. And that's what's really, really amazing about this work is that there is no expiration date on when people need help. I'm 37. I still reach out to my parents, my grandma, my network, my resources for help all the time. And that's what we get to be for these people that are coming out of incarceration. We get to be their village. And one of the reasons that I like doing interviews like this is because I feel like not enough people think about that.
Yeah.
We know, like, oh, someone commits a crime, we want them to go to jail, right? Or we want them to go to a program. But what happens next? What happens after they're done with the program? What happens after they're done with jail? They're still part of our society. And we as a society have to care about them. Otherwise, what happens is this whole
Right.
circle repeats and cycles and continues. And so, are these programs perfect? Of course not, because we're dealing with human beings, right? Not everybody wants help. Not everyone knows how to accept it. A lot of people have so much trauma that they can't even begin to receive it. But this program works because they're getting that people need safety first, right? It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If your brain doesn't have safety, it can't do anything else. Housing is one of the most important things for safety. If you're not having to worry where you lay your head at night, you can then start thinking about the next thing. Your brain can start healing. Your substance abuse issues can start being addressed, things like that, but not before you have housing. So programs like ours are important. The community support is important, right? Because one of the things I'm seeing as we're opening up the 22nd facility and going to new areas, like this is our first facility that will be in North Hollywood where we haven't really been before, is we're no longer in a space where we can say not in my backyard because mental health, substance abuse issues, things like that affect so many people that there's no backyard big enough to house them all. We gotta embrace them everywhere and support them and um, get the information out there so it's not fear. I was at my son's baseball game in the La Crescenta area, and I saw the signage all around the park, like, "Hey, everybody, gather around. They're trying to build a sober living house somewhere. This is what's going to happen. If there's a sober living house, there's going to be drunk people coming to the park trying to rape your kids." Like, and I was like, yeah, this is what happens. Like, we try to scare people, and that's worked for a long time. But now, with the mental health and the substance use epidemic being what it is, and so many people being affected by it, fear is not the way to go. We need information.
Yeah, I live with bipolar disorder too, and I always think about how people with lived experience should be more leaders or have people help them be leaders. So, how important is it for people with lived experience to help others going through the program?
100%. It's the most important thing. Part of our success is because we hire people with lived experiences. The we call them inspirational managers, but they would be like the equivalent of like resident aides, program techs at other facilities. They almost all come with lived experience. And that is so important because how to support somebody when they're going through, mental health episodes, cravings, things like that. It's not something you can read about in a book. When you have your own experience to add to it, it adds a level of empathy and compassion and things like that that help that whole goal that we have of getting them to trust us, right? I can read about bipolar disorder all day long and try to, work with someone with bipolar disorder, but the moment that I've, bring in somebody that either has bipolar disorder as well, or had a parent or a sibling or a spouse, the care is completely different. So people with lived experience are the most beautiful individuals to have in this work, and they have the most valuable contributions because this work is not something you can read about. You miss something when it's just something you read about. I see that with a lot of our clinicians. They're licensed, they're, been through all the classes and got all the degrees and passed all the tests, but they miss
Yeah.
that compassion and that empathy and that understanding. Even for myself, one of the challenges that we have in our program is getting people to stay on their medication once they leave the program, right? And I remember telling people, like, just take your meds, like, understand this is better for you, blah, 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 whatever. And then a couple of years ago, I had a baby who was born 3 months early. And my doctor put me on an SSRI because she said, you're going to go through a really tough journey for the next couple of months as your son is in the NICU. I'm going to give you something to support you. I took the medication and there's things that it helped with, right? Like I was kind of like just mellow throughout the day. I wasn't too sad. I wasn't none of those things. So that allowed me to, do my work and take care of my other kids. But then I realized I couldn't laugh. I couldn't get too sad, but I couldn't get too happy either. And so, guess what? The first thing I wanted to do was get off my medication. And that gave me such a beautiful insight into our members who we work with. And I told all of my staff, particularly the clinicians, I said, start asking them when is the last time that they laughed. Start asking them, like, not just questions of, like, how do you feel on your medication? More nuanced things that only my personal experience was able to add. Because we've always asked, how do you feel on your medication? But the question, when is the last time you laughed? Or even putting on something funny and seeing who laughs, who doesn't, who just, stares blankly. It gives such rich insight. And that is the value of lived experience. It's having somebody be able to give you that insight.
Yeah, when we're talking, you've said a few times, you've said mental health and substance abuse together. So how, how why are those two things together and why should they be treated as such?
Well, interesting you say that. One of the things that I noticed in talking to a lot of our clinicians and a lot of our members is that mental health. So first of all, there's two things going on. There are people who have like psychosis that's induced by substance use, right? There's people like that. And then there's also people that have mental health issues, either are not treating the mental health issues or are treating them. and use substance use to feel something, right? They're on medication, the medication like zombies them out, and they use substances to feel something. Or they have mental health issues, they're not treating it at all, and they use substances to kind of quiet the voices or make the anxiousness that they feel go away for a little bit, right? So it's something that has to be done together. We have to understand that we can't have someone, we can't come to someone and say, stop using substances if that's not where they are in their journey. But we have to say, what is making you want to use substances? And they might say something like, oh, you know what, when I wake up in the morning, I feel like I'm going to throw up and I only feel better after I drink some beer. Well, that's where our therapists and clinicians come in, and hopefully they're hearing that, like, maybe there's a little anxiety that they're working with. Maybe there's something there that we can then hopefully find a medication regimen that can make them feel better, right? And help them understand that the substances are not needed. But with LA County being a county that subscribes to harm reduction, our journey is not, and this is the thing that's really hard for people to wrap their minds around, it's not abstinence, right? It's understanding that when somebody comes to us, they might not be in a place where they're ready to stop using drugs. By stopping judgment, stopping punishment, and getting very curious about why. Why are you using drugs? It could be, another common one that I hear for why they use drugs is the congeniality, the community of using drugs together, right? Something that they've known all of their life. Well, what can we replace it with? Where you feel that same feeling of community and congeniality and fun and all of those things. And you can do that. A lot of times it absolutely is possible. And then there's things like medication, aided treatment that can help with substance use, the Vivitrols, the things like that, Suboxone, things like that, that can help people with substance use issues. But there isn't really a separation between mental health and substance use. It's all just a curiosity that we meet all of it with, of like, what is your experience? And here, let's try something else to address your experience. And you let me know how it feels. Oh, it doesn't feel good? Well, let's try something else. And I think that that curiosity is really paramount to this work because a lot of times and I know we've come through a long history of, a psychiatrist saying, okay, take these meds, be
Yeah.
quiet, and go about your day. Oh, you're coming in complaining. That's just proof that you're mentally ill. Like, no, that's not
Right.
it at all. This is a human being having a human experience, and we will get very curious about it.
Did you ever think your mission would grow the way it has?
Um, so I always knew I wanted to help people. That was actually one of the reasons I didn't want to be a lawyer because I realized like lawyers didn't help people the way I thought they would.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." Um, but I've always been very intentional about my relationship with God and asking God to use me in a way that could help people. And so the way I look at this work is the privilege of a lifetime. It's the opportunity to literally wake up and take care of people. And so that's still my conversation today with God. God, use me for whoever you need to. Send whoever you need to my way. And one of the reasons why we keep opening facilities, it's not because our goal is to have 100 facilities. It's because I know when you come to Victory Starts Now, you will be treated well. I know you will be taken care of well. I know your medical needs, your mental health needs, um, all will be met, that you will be treated with respect, all of those things. That was not my experience at some other facilities that I looked at before I had the idea of opening Victory Starts Now. So it's, again, this work is a privilege of a lifetime. I pray I get to do it all the days of my life. It has never, it's hard work, right? Because it's heart work. So, but it's needed, and I feel very privileged that I get to spearhead it in some way.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
Thank you for asking that question. Um, I go to therapy, and I have an excellent therapist, and she'll bring up things like compassion fatigue to me, and things like that, and say like, okay, let's kind of check for those things, and let's make some things that you can a list of things that you can do um to address, because that's a real thing, right? When you're constantly taking care of people, you can definitely feel some fatigue from it. Um, but the therapy part is really, really important for me. Coaching, any type of anything like that, because I look at it the same way that we look at individuals that like LeBron James. LeBron James has a shooting coach and an offensive coach and a defensive coach and all of those things. And that's what therapists are, right? You find the right therapist for you, and it's that coach that's literally putting you in a space for 50 minutes to just think about your thoughts and make sure that they are working for you and helpful for you. So many of us don't get to challenge our beliefs. We just accept them. We don't even know what our beliefs are. And so therapy absolutely is very important. My relationship with God is very important. And then I have three small children. So there's like this beauty about little kids. They, the way they look at the world, the happiness that they get, the way they're able to get super duper sad and mad, and then like 30 seconds later be back to being happy. There's something in that whole experience that's really rejuvenating to my soul that I get to experience daily. So, and honestly, also seeing them makes me motivated to continue this work because I want the world that they inherit to be one that's compassionate, to be one that's asking the questions of like, what happens to people after incarceration? How do we support them? It doesn't matter how many times we say, I don't care what happens to them. Doesn't make them not no a lesser part of our society. They're still there. So yeah, all those things.
Where do you want to see your mission in the future?
You know what? I thought about this a lot, and one of the things I realized is I want as much people to know about this and understand it as possible. When you take a look at AIDS and HIV, right, from the moment that it became like a big thing, right? Let's think back to like Magic Johnson when he came out and people were scared to play basketball with him because they thought they could catch AIDS through playing basketball with someone, to where it is now, where people that are HIV positive or have AIDS can now adopt children and marry and live very regular lives. The reason we were able to get from A to B is through information. And that is my hope for this mission, is that the information gets out there constantly and consistently so that we look at mental health, we look at substance use, we look at homelessness, we look at incarceration through that same ability of like, okay, it's no longer a thing where I'm afraid to play basketball with Magic Johnson. We know that that sounds ridiculous to us now.
Right.
So that's my mission, for us to get to a place where it sounds ridiculous that we don't think about people once they get out of jail, and we don't think about the support that they may need. I want it to be ridiculous.
How can people reach out and learn more?
Oh, absolutely. They can visit our website at victorystartsnow.org. There's ways that they can work with us, volunteer, donate, learn more about what we're doing. They can also follow us at VSN House on Instagram. Um, yeah, I think we're only on Instagram. But um, please reach out. Please ask any questions. I would be so honored to answer any questions, guide anybody. Yeah.